Without much ado, I'd like to start the whole thing. So when I got down to looking at what is it that is, I requested Judith to write down some of the things that she would want me to speak on. And one of the things that she said was that she said NLP and the awakened mind. And I'm like a little rusty on my notes. And I said, hey, I'm not sure what the awakened mind means anymore. Let's go and check what the awakened mind. So what I did was yesterday evening, I opened the book and I started reading the Awakened Mind by Anna Wise. And actually, I must say I was quite gripped by it. And I went through the whole book fairly fast because I'm familiar with the contents. And what really surprised me was if it were anybody else who, any other NLP practitioner were to read this book, he would actually think that this is a book on NLP. Anybody would look at this book and say that this is a standard NLP textbook with a little bit of, shall I use the word, better language or flowery language than what NLPers are used to, okay? And the reason I say that is that almost all of the exercises, many of the exercises that I see have found itself integrated into the world of NLP. One of my things that I really very much liked is there is an exercise here in the book where it talks about stilling the beta waves or working on reducing the beta frequency. And one of the things that you do that is by relaxing the tongue. And I remember when I went for my first NLP training with the co-founder of NLP, Dr. John Grinder in Sydney, Australia, one of the first things that he taught us in the group to work on what he would call as reducing the internal dialogue or stopping the internal dialogue was to relax the tongue. Now, I did ask him where it was, and I'm sure he wasn't very clear about where it came from. I remember asking Judith about where she thought Anna got it from, and I believe she said it came from one of the yogic teachers that she was exposed to. I may be wrong, but that's the kind of thing that I got. I thought probably it all comes back to India at the end of the day. So if at all anything, we'll take the copyrights back again to our country at the end of the day. But that's what it is, you know, that what NLP is, and when people ask what NLP is. So quickly, NLP, the name itself is a metaphor, neuro-linguistic programming, which is that you're talking about how to work with the nervous system. It's a way of languaging, verbally or non-verbally, with the nervous system, with the computer that we call our brain and nervous system put together, because it runs the mind-body mechanism together, where you have a metaphor that if there is something not okay in the program, then you go and change the programming so that then you change the output that you want to get. So if you go in front of an audience and you feel scared, then that means that there is an input that goes in, which is that there's an input of you seeing the audience. There's an input of what's going on or processing inside your head, where you make it bigger than usual, and you start experiencing then an output of, say, anxiety or panic or fear or shaking or nervousness. And then when you realize that that's what it is, so what NLP then says is that, hey, there is something that you can do at the level of processing whereby the input can be the same, but the way you process can be changed in such a way that you no longer need to feel scared. Maybe you feel pleasant about it. Maybe you feel even confident about it. Maybe you feel great about it. So NLP is basically, the name itself is a metaphor about how you go about programming and making a change in yourself by dealing with the way your mind holds information, language, verbal and non-verbal. So it's a kind of a, let's say, a very quick 101 kind of a definition for NLP for most people to start with. A lot of people ask me if I completely believe in the metaphor, and I say I don't think everything is a programming kind of a metaphor. If you look at the world of say psychiatry, for example, they look at the metaphor is operating through chemistry. It's like that there is some chemical imbalance, then you give certain active drugs to be able to change the thing. So the metaphor comes more chemical. If you look at Freudian or Jungian kind of work, then the metaphor is more archaeological, which is that you dig deep into what's your past and you excavate. And when you find something worthwhile, then it allows you to resolve something. So That's coming from a metaphorical construct of archaeology. And if you take new age technologies, like say one of my favorites, EFT or emotion trance, or any of those new tapping, any of those new technologies that are there, they operate more of a metaphor in terms of plumbing. There is something that's blocking in the energy pipe inside of you, the meridian inside of you. And when you manipulate the energy meridian, then what happens is the energy flows clear, and then you experience a resolution, you experience better health. You're no longer scared about it. You're no longer upset about it, and so on and so forth. So the metaphor of NLP is programming. So it's coming from the software world. I don't think it's applicable to everywhere, but it's a useful metaphor at the end for people to realize it's just a metaphor. I think I want to give credit to everybody in the line of NLP world one by one. I think first and foremost, normally it's known there are two co-founders. One is John Grinder and Richard Bandler. What's very little known is that there's a third guy called Frank Pucelik, who was the man behind the scenes. So it is actually a trio. And for many reasons, the third person never got to be publicized in the world of NLP. Frank Pucelik is more well-known in Russia because he took most of NLP in its developmental stages and went behind the Iron Curtain. So he has made a name for himself in the Eastern Bloc and in Russia, from what I understand. So then Bandler and Grinder went on to take it beyond a particular level. What they essentially did was very simple. Bandler was a student of heuristics, or what you would call as computer science today, in the University of Santa Cruz, particularly the Cresque College there. And John Grinder was a PhD student. He had done his thesis under Noam Chomsky. And he was teaching as a teacher of linguistics. He was a former officer of the military intelligence during the Cold War era. So when he left the military, he then did his PhD and then went on to become a professor. So there was a time when all the flower power was going on, 1970s, the Vietnam War protests were going on. And they were getting a lot of veterans from the Vietnam War. And I think the nation rallied at that time to create a lot of makeshift counselors or quick trauma trainees where they're able to help the many veterans who were coming. And USC was made a particular point for that. And the person who was making a lot of strides in that area was a guy called Fritz Perls. What happened was that Fritz Perls made a few videos because he was very effective using Gestalt therapy, where he helped people work through a metaphor or an understanding that if you experience your feelings and if you express your feelings, then it releases from your system and causes resolution. But if it stays behind, then it creates disturbances. So in the video trainings that were offered for students of the Cresque College and the University of Santa Cruz, it was found that Bandler was the most effective student. And what Frank Pucelik and others were trying to understand is how come this one guy has been able to get it far better than others. And thereafter, then it became more like Bandler mentoring most of the other people in that particular program. It was a completely voluntary program. It's obviously something that people did after their college hours. What Bandler did was he went and spoke to Grinder because he had been in an encounter group, or a T group as you call it that time, and they'd been together in certain Vietnam War protests, to say that, hey, since you're a great or a good teacher of linguistics, can you kind of try to find out using the linguistic tools, how come I learned what I did and others are not able to do it? Because my guess is if you can find out how is it that I learned it, then you'll be able to help others to learn it as well as I did. Grinder did not agree initially, but Bandler was persistent, to give credit to him. Eventually, they formed a partnership where Grinder decided to drop all the tools that he had learned through linguistics, and he decided to use the tools that he used to become a polyglot or a linguist, which is put himself in the environment of the people who speak that native language and just mimic and copy their body movements and the language till in a few months' time you pick up the whole conversation, the ability to speak that language. So Grinder kept modeling Bandler, and after 6 months, they found that both of them were equally effective in the counselors group, or the people who are working with the veterans. And from then on, they started an association saying that this is fascinating. we seem to be on the cusp of how do we download genius. If somebody does something phenomenally well, there is a way in which we can just go spend time with them and download their genius with them. And they took it in a way to say that, hey, let's go and work with the best family therapist of our time. And at that time, it was a lady called Virginia Satir. So they went and worked with Virginia Satir and downloaded her patterns. And then they got on to meet the next mentor, a person called Milton Erickson. Amidst all this, you need to see that the godfather of NLP is a guy called Gregory Bateson, who was a professor, if I'm not mistaken, of anthropology in University of Santa Cruz. His wife, ex-wife at that time, was a very famous anthropologist called Margaret Mead, who had done a lot of phenomenal work in Bali, particularly with the tribes there and the anthropological studies. So anyway, Bateson had asked these people to go and study with Erickson. Erickson, if many of you don't know, was a father of medical hypnotherapy. He was paralyzed from the waist down. He had very minimal use of one hand and one leg. And he had the ability to sit and observe in the chair and bring about changes in people by the usage of words and taking them to different trance states. So Bandler Grinder had the good fortune of being mentored by him for 11 months. And they created a set of books called Structure of Magic, 1 and 2. And a lot of people from the medical and the psychiatric community challenged them, and they decided to take them on. And they started doing something phenomenal. They found that they were able to bring better results in working with people than the psychiatrists themselves could do or psychologists themselves could do. And the more they were attacked, poo-pooed, and abused, the more they were able to demonstrate their success. And coming in the lines of that, the guy who made NLP really popular is a guy called Anthony Robbins, who was a student with John Grinder. And he then decided to really take it up. And I think he made the NLP world popular. I may not agree with all that he's doing, but I will have to give him the due that he made NLP really the popular buzzword at the end of the day. So it kind of developed, and I think what then happened is it kind of started branching off that saying, hey, we went and modeled some of the best psychotherapists and change agents. Can we go and model some of the best public speakers? So they went after that, downloaded that information, created models of great public speaking. Hey, there are some people who are very good traders. So there's a guy called Charles Faulkner, who's a very good NLP trainer, who went and modeled some of the best traders of his time, and then created a program that would help people to pick up the skills of trading much better. So he was written in the book New Market Wizards by, I forget the name. So New Market Wizards, I remember that, Schwager, I think. And a person, Robert Dills, one of their students, he took it in the direction of creativity. How do people work on creativity, work on that? So we've had a lot of people take it in different domains and model some of the best people. I remember there was a project called Photo Reading, if you are all familiar, done by a guy called Paul Shields. So initially, John sponsored the project with Paul, where they went and modeled some of the fastest readers on the planet. And then they created a program which would allow people to become a fast reader. So NLP is all about, getting that particular flow going. And I just wanted, for the benefit of everybody, to understand that this is what NLP modeling is, that you go after a group of geniuses in a particular field, download that, iterate on it. It's not as easy as it seems. It can take a long time, depending upon the complexity of the skill. But at the end of the day, what you do have is you can transfer a skill to somebody and reduce the learning curve to an extraordinarily high degree. So that's the biggest contribution NLP has in the world. So that's as far as NLP modeling is concerned. More particularly in the work of awakened mind, what NLP would be doing is the domain of, I was reading what the awakened mind is as what Anna had written in the book. She says that the prerequisite for an awakened mind is to be able to have an open flow of information between the conscious, subconscious, and the unconscious mind. For those students of psychology, they'll realize that this borrows heavily of the Jungian model, because when Carl Jung split from his mentor Freud on his understanding or structure, he had a very famous dream, which he writes about in his book. And in this dream, he noticed that he woke up in a house, and he was in the first floor of the house. It had beautiful paintings and beautiful chandeliers and light. Then he walked down to the ground floor, and he found it was a bare wall. It was not even plastered, and there was no furniture. And then he noticed a set of steps that went down to the basement. And as he went down to the basement, he noticed that there were two crypts, coffin-like crypts there. And then he noticed that he could see his neighbor's crypts, and he could see the crypts of the other houses. And he realized he could see all the crypts across Vienna through his basement. So then he realized when he woke up from the dream that what it symbolized was the first floor was his conscious mind, the ground floor was his subconscious mind, and the basement was his unconscious mind. And he postulated the word or the phrase collective unconscious, that we are all connected at the level of at a particular level. We are all one. We are all connected. So the collective unconscious is where it came from. So that analyze came forward and said that the combination of frequencies that can be learned by us through this work creates this sense of awakened mind, is what is very interesting. And I wanted to focus the remainder of the conversation that we have today on that. And not wanting to bore everybody, then maybe get into a few demonstrations also. Any questions so far on NLP, origin, history, modeling? Not to boast, but I am one of the most competent authorities on the NLP history. I worked with almost all of the founders excepting Bandler. So I have a more of a first-hand account than most people would have. So if there are any questions on that, I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, I can move on to next topic. Did I bore you too much with a little bit of history?
No, it's wonderful to get some of that history. I took a workshop with Bandler and Grinder back in the, I don't remember exactly when it was, late 60s, early 70s, somewhere around there. And I've been aware of, and I've read most of their books since then, but I've never really practiced or, so theoretically I'm aware of what they've done, but I haven't become an NLP practitioner in that sense. But
okay.
A lot of that history I'm interested in hearing, because I have contact with a lot of those folks, same folks, through Esalen and California. I lived near Santa Cruz. I went to Santa Cruz University off and on. So a lot of those people that you're talking about, I had, let's say, crossed paths with at that time.
Great.
I have a question, Krish. I ran across NLP, I don't know, back in the 80s, I guess, and how it was used in the workshop I was in was that the guy would, I guess you would really rolling back a personal issue that you have and reframing it. And so that was my concept of NLP. I didn't, this whole idea of downloading genius, and which I suppose you must mean is a gathering of traits that then people are taught to model, or what? How does that actually work? So you go to a genius and
so
find out what makes them tick?
Because you see, my association with John started because I noticed that I'd completed my NLP training in practitioner, master practitioners. I was having fairly a moderate amount of success with training people and working with people on one-on-one for issues as a counselor. What then happened is that I noticed that this whole body of work that you can go and download geniuses that they called as NLP modeling, it was not available in a way that I could understand. And it took me a long time to understand that the technique is fairly simple. It's really nothing but the way a baby learns its language, the mother tongue, which is that the baby is not taught by educational experts. It's taught by its mom and dad. And what then happens is the baby basically mimics and copies its parents. And V.S. Ramachandran says in his book of Phantoms in the Brain, and he speaks of a concept called mirror neurons. So you find that the mirror neurons are firing when you mimic and copy. So the explanation that's given now is that when you mimic and copy a person when they're doing their genius, then what happens is you create a neural framework where your nervous system is able to do the same after a certain amount of time. That's the framework. So if somebody is extraordinarily good, I think the whole principle of apprenticeship, we would say, comes from that same model of NLP. It's just that if you knew NLP techniques a little better, then I think even your apprenticeship can be much faster. That's what I personally believe. What did I do? I went to work with a shooting coach to be precise. I'd worked with some Olympic athletes in shooting, and I had a fair degree of success in that. And what I did was that at that time in India, getting a shooting coach of Olympic caliber was very expensive. So I had a billionaire client who brought over an expensive coach. I think it was $600 a day or $900 a day, and he was hired for a year. So that's how expensive they can get sometimes. So what my client said is, hey, I would like you to model this guy and take this information and transfer it to us or to our shooting coaches so that we are then able to do what he's able to do. So a lot of the time I spent in modeling and spending time to see how he's doing. And I could find that after some time, even though I personally had never touched a gun, I could train the guys in the other shooting grounds fairly well without even having had years as a shooter or years as a shooting coach. I'm not saying I was as good as him, but I was definitely far better off than somebody on the learning curve than most people can imagine. So the speed with which I learned it and the speed with which I could transfer it, that speed is what, and the time that we save is what was critical. So I then wrote a paper later and I presented it to the NLP community in Australia when I'd come to do some courses. So when people ask me what NLP modeling is, I said, it's the capturing of genius that lies in humanity for posterity. If somebody is a phenomenal public speaker, then we capture that genius for posterity. If somebody is a phenomenal peacemaker, we capture that and do it. Dills worked with several people in Fiat who are extremely good at resolving factory strikes, and he downloaded those leadership traits into and made that into a book, or you make that into a tape or an e-learning program or a video program for people to learn from. So I don't think NLP has got anything original to offer to start with. For me, NLP is nothing but it's a copy of everything. The more I read Anna Weiss's book, the more it occurs to me that John Grinder sat in one of Anna Weiss's courses and probably did not give credit to her. That's what I keep getting on a regular basis. Considering that they were all within the same geography, I think it's pretty much possible. So, but I think whether they give credit or not, they do know that there's nothing original in NLP. The only thing original in NLP is what is known as the eye accessing cues, which is that they discovered that the eyeballs, which are an extension of the brain, move in certain directions to be able to access. So when people think about visual information, hey, what did I have for breakfast? Then their eyes go up. When people think about the last telephone conversation they had with their father or mother, the eyes go sideways. And when people are feeling certain intense feelings, their eyes go down. So that discovery that eyeball movements help us access different functions in our brain, that is the only piece of original information I know from the world of NLP. The rest has been copied. So NLP is very eclectic. It will copy everything and make it part of its world at the end of the day. As long as we understand it's nothing is original and it's only for the benefit of humanity, that's fine. Junaid, I hope, I think it was a long answer to your question, but I hope it helps.
Yes. But that eye movement thing is phenomenally useful, isn't it? Because I've actually seen other people do NLP and they were blocked and they couldn't get anywhere. And then the person said, well, look in this direction. And they went, oh, there's that piece of information. Sure. And it's not that they couldn't have done it in an awakened mind meditation, but, there's 25 minutes worth of preparation to get down into the deep to access that information. If you can move your eye a certain direction and grab the piece of information right there, that's pretty phenomenal to me.
Yeah.
EMDR, I was just going to say EMDR utilizes that eye movement quite extensively. In fact, there are a number of programs that actually just have you move your eyes around to access information, which you're probably familiar with. I was just
Yeah.
going to say, in terms of the awakened mind, I'm assuming you're familiar with Connirae, Andreas.
Yeah, very much, very much.
Yes, and what I've seen, this is just observations that I've had over the years, is that people who are using the core transformational process, which also
Yeah.
incorporates Genlin's focusing process, as they go down, let's say, first of all, the people I've seen that are using the Genlin's focusing almost invariably have perfect awakened mind patterns.
Mm-hmm.
And that as someone uses that and goes through the core transformation process, when they hit that core state, they've gone into the evolved mind. And so we can utilize that process. I don't know if you've actually monitored people at where you are, but I have seen this, not frequently, but I'm hoping other people have seen this, that it's almost invariable that when I see someone who does focusing, and is good at it, they have a perfect awakened mind pattern. And when they start doing the core transformational process, when they hit the core state, they go into an evolved mind.
My experience is a little different, Gary.
Okay.
My experience is, and I was going to go in that direction, so I feel that I'm going a little faster, but that's fine. My personal thing is that Connirae Andreas and Steve Andreas, the couple who were students of Grinder and Bandler in Boulder, Colorado, I think these two people have taken NLP to different depths and dimensions than what the founders did. And it's kind of really looking at it, NLP has kind of gone beyond the founders at the end of the day. I have noticed that when people do core transformation, which Connirae brought about in the 90s or maybe 80s, I forget even when she started that creates more the evolved mind pattern. And what she's been recently created, which is known as the wholeness process, which came out of her illness and chronic fatigue syndrome for nearly 15 years, that gives more of the evolved mind pattern. What it is that at the end of the day, the core transformation still has certain content, which is there's still a dialoguing that happens. So there is a certain amount of beta waves that come when you are dealing with the core transformation process. And yes, there are times when you go and access the unconscious, so it has the potential to go to evolved mind pattern. But the latest work that they do, which is based on the modeling of the road to enlightenment as given by Ramana Maharishi, an Indian saint, who comes with the philosophy, who am I? So this is an NLP modeling of that particular way of thinking. The wholeness process, I believe, gives more of an access to the evolved mind. So that's why I have not specifically done the exercises for that, and I was hoping that either Judith or Oksana, if they're interested, that I was able to take one of them through that particular wholeness process, and we can see if what the process was coming up.
Yes,
or you're hooked up subject there. You've got
Arieh there to do that. What I'd like to do is I have a track in which I want to go, but I'm just like wondering, should I go on the track here? But I think I'll follow the track that I have, and eventually I'll come to the wholeness process. Would that be okay? Perfect. Okay. So you were speaking, Gary, about EMDR, and I think a better subject would be eye movement integration, or IEMT, where these people, because they come from the pure, I think they have better success with knowledge. They cut off too much of the jargon. I'm always surprised by the number of books that I see in EMDR market. Such big, thick books, and I'm like, the technique is not more than 2 pages. Why are they taking so long to write about it? So very simply, shall we all engage in a quick eye movement integration? Would you all be just interested? So those of you do it very simple. Take an event in the past that is distressing, which could be something that makes you sad or scared or angry. So something that makes you sad, fearful, or angry. So take an event from the past. As you think of that event in this moment now, notice what is the level of distress. And if you could create an arbitrary scale where 10 is the most distressful and 0 is no distress, no discomfort whatsoever, on a scale of 0 to 10, what is the level of discomfort as you relive this memory? So you could say like 4, 5. Could you just kind of blurt out your numbers, those whose microphones are unmuted? Judith, what would your number be like when you think of the event? 5, okay. James,
I got
5.
10. I got 10.
Okay. Okay. Do you have a number, Oksana, by any chance? Do you have a number in your mind as to what's the number of distress in case you're playing the exercise?
I would say 7.
7, okay. So what I'd like you to do is, I'd like you to plot 6 points. So extreme left, extreme right, top left, top right, then bottom left, bottom right. So these are 6 points at the end of the day. What we're going to do is very simple. We're going to think of this particular memory and move our eyes. And I'm going to move my eyes and move my fingers. The key here for it to work well is to think of that memory, relive the memory, and have the eyes move. Okay? I would recommend for the duration of this exercise alone that those of you who are wearing glasses can remove your glasses, because your glasses tend to make your eyes focused in a particular place, so you may not get it. So just hold that memory, please, in your mind, and just follow this. We'll do it for 30 seconds, 40 seconds. So I think of that memory that is distressing, and I go from here to the left, back again. Then from here, I connect to that point, move it, back. Then I go down, go all the way down here, connect, come back, connect, there. Think of the memory, keep thinking of the memory, go back there, come down. Then use a circle to connect all the 6 points. Use a circle to connect all the 6 points. And I notice myself breathing a little better, which is an indication of release. And bring your eyes back to the center and then close your eyes. I'm not expecting anything dramatic to happen, but notice what is the level of discomfort that you have now when you think of the event on a scale of 0 to 10. And kind of tell me your number at this point of time.
7 or 8 for me, down from 10.
Okay, 10 to 7. Anybody else would like to give their numbers if there's any change that they notice? It could have increased, it could have decreased, it could have stayed the same.
I would say the same.
It stayed the same, okay.
Yeah.
So I'll work with you, Arieh. So I want you to just move your thing. I'll work with you fairly intensively on this exercise, okay? And I hope you're being monitored on the brainwaves to see what's happening.
Okay.
Later, okay? So are you holding that memory in mind that's causing you distress?
Yeah.
So hold that mind and then now move your eyes left to right. Yeah. Now what happens is, if you notice, Arieh, that when you move your left to right, when I'm sitting here and watching, I can notice that there is a speed bump that's happening in your eye movement, okay? Which is that it's not going smoothly. There's like a kind of a speed bump that's happening. Now, when you have a speed bump in the eye movement, it's an indication that that line is a neural pathway which needs to be kind of cleared out, ironed out. And the only way is by forcing yourself to traverse that line back and forth again till you're able to move your eyes smoothly while thinking of that memory. Then that causes a resolution. So let's go on the straight line again. Make it smooth back and forth. Yeah, very good. Slowly, slower, and keep reliving the memory. And why don't you make a few circles? Make a full circle clockwise, gently, and then anti-clockwise. Okay, lots of speed bumps there. So I wish we were in person. But what we'll stop is, we'll stop for a moment briefly, and Arieh ask you on a scale of 0 to 10, close your eyes, take a deep breath, let go. Now, when you think of this memory on a scale of 0 to 10, what is the level of discomfort you have?
I would have to say the same.
It's the same.
But I also would like to say that this system of measuring with numbers, emotions with numbers, is a bit strange to me, and I'm not sure if I'm understanding it like the scale.
Yeah,
So,
I appreciate that, because what I was noticing through your eye movements was that I was suspecting from here that whether you were getting other thoughts while doing the process. Okay.
yeah,
So, like for example, if you have a thought,
I guess I don't feel like this is making any difference to me to move my eyes in that way.
sure.
But personally, I'm probably a very hard subject for you, as I have never done stuff like that, because personally I also don't really believe in it, although I know a lot of people benefit from it, and I have a few friends that do NLP, whether it's with training or as subject, or as, they go and they get help and they're happy with the results. I can only say my personal experience. So yeah, I don't want you to take it, and I'm sure.
No, not at all, not at all.
Accomplishments with others.
Yeah, I understand, Arieh. So what I want to say is that one of the things that I liked about NLP was about the way the singular or important lesson that they got in working with people, which is that don't fall in love with the process, you know, which is that if a process doesn't work, you can drop it and look at another process rather than getting fixated on the process and saying, hey, this has to work. So one of the presuppositions of NLP is that you don't have a inflexible client. You only have an inflexible therapist.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
if I were to attribute and blame you for the technique not working, all we have is at the end of the day something that's not happened and a lot more blame that's gotten percolated. But if I'd rather look at saying that, hey, but what it is it's fairly simple. If I were to look at it, if you have a linguistic loop or a cognitive loop going on in your head, I don't think I like this, I don't think I believe in it, I don't think this is working, while doing this exercise, I could imagine why it didn't be as effective, or it wasn't as effective as it was for Judith to start with, where it moved from 10 to 7. All right.
Yeah.
So my invitation to you would be to do the eye movement without any expectation. The second excellent thing about NLP that I have really come to appreciate a lot is the fact that you can work in a content-free manner. And let me explain. So a content-free manner would be that somebody has an issue that they are not probably comfortable disclosing to you. Let's say Bill Clinton came to you and he said, I want to do some session with you, but I've done something in my past that I'm not comfortable with. And I think I might, indict myself, if I were to disclose it to you. But I do have a lot of discomfort when I think about this particular thing that I did in the past. So then you can tell him, hey, Bill, you don't have to worry about it. If you're willing to not question or not, play along with it, just take the incident that you have in mind over which you have regret or guilt. And then on a scale of 0 to 10, tell me what's the level of guilt that you have. And let's say he said 9. And then we work with the eye movements. I'm sure we can substantially bring down his guilt. Now, we don't know whether it's because of what he did with Monica Lewinsky or what he did with his mother or what he did with his wife. That's his choice, all right? But then the point is, it could be even a candy that he stole when he was 5 years old. We don't need to know what it is. So one of the advantages you have with NLP is the fact that you can work with people, in many cases, content-free, which gives a lot of people an opportunity to work on their problems without having to disclose the nature of their problems.
Can I ask you a question about that? So
yeah,
the thing that I held in mind was not, I just saw a mouse run across the floor, so I'm having to hold my feet up.
Yeah.
There's a mouse here. Sorry. It was not something that I did. It was something that I learned about, and it was a terrible shock to my system. It was something that made me very, very sad and upset. Will that work as well to erase something like that that's not like a thing that you committed yourself, but that you learned about that happened to somebody else?
Yeah, I mean, what happened is, like, for example, I had my girlfriend visiting me a couple of weeks ago in India. She's from Canada, and we were driving down in the car, and it's very typical that she saw a lady scooterist knocked off her scooter by a car driver. And my girlfriend is an occupational therapist, so her instinct was to jump out of the car and do some first aid. And I said, I don't think it's a good idea because the car is going to block. And by the time we could see what was happening, there are already 15, 20 people there. So I said, it's just going to add to the compounded thing. And I said, okay, just taking a white lady out there will just compound the problems even more. We'll create more of a traffic jam. So, but the point was, I noticed that she was clearly traumatized by that. So it's not something that she had the accident to herself, but she got traumatized by witnessing an accident on the road. So then it became useful to work with her using a couple of NLP techniques to help her resolve that particular issue so that she's not disturbed about it going forward in the day. And also, she was quite concerned that she didn't want to be worked on in such a way that she became insensitive to these things in the matter. So those are two concerns that she had. We have this term thing called secondary gain that's written in The Awakened Mind, which is that if some change doesn't take place, by and large, there's a secondary gain to be gotten by not having the change take place. So in her case, when I did work with her first, there was no change because the secondary gain concern was that if I were to make myself forget this or feel less uncomfortable about it, then I might be losing some sensitivity around that. So keeping that secondary gain then in mind and respecting that then caused us to bring a better resolution when we went forward with a simple application of the eye movement or other techniques. I forget what I specifically applied with it, but this is what I would say. So it is applicable for people irrespective of whether it's happened to you or you witnessed it, and even if you heard it. So I have people here who see things on television and get traumatized by it. So there's enough scope for people to get traumatized no matter what.
Zombie movies.
Yeah.
They'll
People see
traumatize
something.
you.
Yeah. People see something that's happening in the Middle East, they get traumatized. So
Right.
Can I throw something into the mix?
Yeah, please.
I have sort of a different spin on it, Krish, but I'm eager to hear what you have to offer with connecting it to the awakened mind and so forth. But anyway, my story is fairly simple. I live in Golden, Colorado, so Bandler was in town in the late 70s, and so I began studying with the Andreases in Boulder. So I got the opportunity to work with Grinder and Bandler and all of the progenitors except Pucelik, but and then the Andreases were very active in bringing people. But I think that the important thing that I think that is relevant to what you're going after right now, because I want to get back to the awakened mind stuff you're going to present, but part of what is actually, I think, elicited by NLP far beyond the IQs is that behavior is patterned. And if you begin to appreciate the patterns that we're stuck with, whether it's visual, auditory, or kinesthetic, and then you go on to where is your attention? Is your attention inside here or is it out there? When I work in the ER for 30 plus years of my career, and what the people who worked on health, that's Diltz worked with health because his mom had breast cancer, and then two of the guys I trained with formally in the early 80s, Tim Halbum and Chris is his wife.
Susie Smith.
They did a lot of work in the health thing, and so I was always working with health. But when somebody's, let's say, is in pain, then you begin to teach them how to associate into it, how to dissociate out, how to describe it, and so forth. And so much of what's going on, I think, in the descriptive model of modeling is really important. One of the things you kind of skip over, Bandler and Grinder took Steve Gilligan, a Stanford student, down to Erickson and had him do what's called deep trance identification. So I think one of the things you can do is put all of your attention into your model of excellence and extract out what's useful. What's really important is beliefs are not very useful when you have a crisis. And so part of the thing that's embedded in your statement that, the most flexible person in the room, if you're a therapist or if you're a doctor, is the one who may be able to be the most useful to somebody else in that therapeutic environment. In the business environment, which is, Faulkner did more of the business stuff, then you have a different set of parameters you're going after. So one of the problems Judith, is when you get like something like a six-step reframe, which is one of the early techniques. NLP
Yes.
tends to get reduced to techniques, or I'm mirroring, I do what you do, and so forth for rapport. They really completely miss the level of connection. And I'll give you a concrete example I think is pretty funny. One of the guys I trained with in the early 80s, and Tim and Susie and so forth, we all met up in Utah to model a Peruvian shaman back in the mid-90s. And we did that for a while until we got a core group who actually had a high level of skill. And then the guy said, wait, stop. I don't want you extracting too much of what I do from the worldview and the stuff that goes around it, because of different altered states you get into that you don't know your way around. So in my view, a panic state or a phobic state or even a pain state is an altered state for which we have a limited repertoire of responses. So I throw that out for Oksana's friend, is that part of beliefs are limits. And so I wanted to intervene and talk. Why not to do EFT? Let's get down to what you've explored, because one of my problems now with fluidity in a lot of states is I'm unclear which is more alpha and so on and so forth. And what Gary mentioned about, I think, is really useful in the focusing element, and Ann Cornell more than Gene Gendlin now. If you want to look on, that's what I was going to present, Oksana, in June, is if you use focusing, part of Gendlin's work at U Chicago took place at the same time as Joe Kamiya, who was the guy who first published alpha training from U Chicago in the early 70s, that he was doing in the 50s and 60s. And that's the connection, I believe, to where Gendlin and Anna Wise also talked about how theta comes out if you're doing focusing well. The problem is, can you get people there, and can you use the mind mirror to enhance the access? And what I find is fascinating, where Ann Cornell has taken Gendlin's description, not necessarily, Gendlin's work is quite vast. What he's described is much narrower. But what I think is useful, and where there's a connection here, in my view, is that Ann Cornell talks about a felt sense, which is part of the focusing target, is not just the kinesthetic piece, which Bandler and Grinder and the rest would organize visual, auditory, and kinesthetic elements very specifically, and the felt sense is a kinesthetic element. But what Ann Cornell would present in her version of focusing, it is also includes auditory stuff, it includes visual stuff. And what I find with Cornell's work and that focusing, Judith, is that when I'm in a deep focusing state and I have what I experience is a very, very vivid visual imagery, I suspect it's theta. And so what I'm trying to do, really deep theta, I mean dream quality imagery, visual imagery, over and above anything that's kinesthetic. And so part of where I think it's useful to keep track of the eye movements are just identifying people's patterns, and you could call them addictions if you want, to a visual, auditory, or kinesthetic processing sequence or modality. And expanding that out, part of what I think the Mind Mirror offers is a methodology by which to verify and enhance our repertoire.
Can I get your name? I'm sorry, I couldn't get your name.
My name's John.
John, I really appreciate it. And I noticed that you put out so much there. It's like I have 52 cards. I'm like, I have to pick some of the cards that I would like to speak on with what you said. But very quickly, I think what is important is that when you look at getting the felt sense, or when you look at visualizing, or when you look at the audioization, or whatever you want to call it, what we're basically doing from an awakened mind perspective is we are introducing the alpha. So if you look at the alpha meditation exercises in the awakened mind, they're all about sensualization exercises, which is that when you really work through the sense, then you're creating the alpha bridge that allows for the information to come from the theta to the beta, from your subconscious or from your delta, collective unconscious, to your conscious mind. So I think it's a very important technique, that how you stay in the sensualization of these exercises. I'm not too familiar with Eugene Gendlin's focusing, but I would imagine that that's where that's also coming from, that there is a lot of sensualization and working on opening the alpha so that the content can come through per se. So that's the first one. And I have a lot of appreciation for Robert Dills for what he did, because when his mother was diagnosed with breast cancer, then he decided to go and model different people and work with his mother, creating a model of how working with the subconscious mind and resolving your stuff would allow you to recover, have a remission, be healthy. So all that in that particular framework. And the same thing from the NLP model per se. The only thing is that the IEMT for me is a simple technique where what happens is that any memory where there's a charge to it, whether there is anger or sadness or grief or guilt or any kind of emotional charge, what you do find is that when people think about it, their eye movements are not smooth. So that was the fundamental, observation. And what's being done is that at the first level of intervention, and I'm calling it level 1 intervention, which is that you're just working on the basic emotion. It may not be a long-term change in the belief or on the capacity or working on the identity of the person. But if somebody comes in and says, I'm really upset about what my son did today, and then you want to work with that, then what happens is by bringing the emotional content down, you bring down the beta. Because you will find that when people are upset, they have a very splayed beta. Their internal dialogue is going rampant, and what then happens is that does not allow the energy to kind of run. So by doing the IEMT exercises, you'll actually find what's happening is the beta starts contracting and you start getting the closing in of the beta waves. So that's what I've noticed. And thereafter, then we have stuff to go and work with and deal with in the theta part of it, or the delta part of it per se. So that's one perspective. Any questions so far on what John said or anything that I gave an explanation to that? Judith, any observations? Any thoughts?
Well, the main thing that it strikes me is that really anything that you ask people to do that focuses their awareness is going to decrease the beta and give them a chance for the alpha.
Absolutely.
And then another thing I've noticed. It happened because I got to where I was falling asleep in meditation. And so I started searching for ways to not lose my alpha bridge so I didn't drift down. Well, it turned out I wasn't actually falling asleep. I was falling in trance, and it was what I needed to do at the time. But nevertheless, I hooked myself up a whole lot to the mind mirror, searching for solutions in addition to those 10 I already knew. And what I found was the best solution was to tense my eyes of all. And that was the thing that kept the alpha bridge there.
Great.
Which is a little counterintuitive because we're told to relax the eyes so we can get the alpha. But if you want to hold the alpha and keep yourself from... So this makes sense to me that you're having that you're making a correlation between alpha and eye movement, not just on the basis of focused awareness, but also on the basis that the eyes really generate that alpha.
Yeah, and I think it correlates to what we would call as peak performance in athletes or even businessmen, which is that when you're doing peak performance, you cannot afford to go to sleep. So you do have a certain amount of stress in the system. We call that as eustress, as opposed to distress, which is stress which is healthy for you and that's required for you, as opposed to distress, which is affecting your system. So in a peak performance state, we would have certain amount of stress no matter whether we liked it or not. It is a requirement in the system to be able to do it. And I imagine your tensing your eyes was contributing to the eustress factor.
Yeah.
I think something that Anna always seemed to stress, and which we learned from her, was rolling the eyes up to increase alpha, or sometimes looking down to increase alpha. There's a small segment of the population that increased alpha by looking down. Now, looking in the different directions, I don't know if we've ever actually done that. I've never done that. But it would be interesting to begin looking at the eye movement to see which one for each individual increases alpha.
My
So that might be
my suspicion would be Gary, that what happens when you move your eyes up and what happens when you move your eyes down is that you access, when you move your eyes up, your visual cortex, and when you move down, you're accessing your kinesthetic part of the brain. I think it's basically, in my opinion, causing sensualization in a more deeper manner, and hence creating the alpha wave.
Yeah.
That's my sense. I mean, it looks intuitive to me from this place that could be the reason what's happening, that we are really essentializing, and that's what's creating the alpha bridge to move per se.
I just had the thought that this is today is a propitious day because Anna just passed over today 7 years ago.
Oh, wonderful. I have a lot of gratitude to Anna for what she did and developed, and I look at the whole mind mirror work as an NLP modeling project, considering that Max Cade went after the people who produce the best brainwave patterns, like yogis and sadhus and CEOs, and looked at their brainwave patterns and then created exercises to replicate those patterns. So I would say it's a typical standard NLP modeling project as far as I'm concerned. So that she took it and worked on it and developed it is a great thing. And I'm filled with gratitude for what she had to bring about that. It reminds me all about NLP at the end of the day.
Hey,
One of the things that I'd like to mention is that I also, we're going to have coffee sometime, John. I'm in Golden also.
Really?
Yeah. And I
Wow.
think that Anna lived there for a while, if I'm not mistaken.
She did.
But when I was doing the process with you, I noticed that my anxiety went from probably a 5 down to maybe a 2 or even less. But the interesting thing that happened to me is that I was also having a hard time recovering it all.
Yeah.
Another kind of interesting thing is that John probably beat me to Connirae and Steve's training there with NLP Comprehensive by about 3 years. So we didn't overlap at all, but I went through a similar set of relationships with at least some of those people, which was really interesting. And I know John's work, evolved over time, and he didn't maybe ever teach it exactly the same way twice. I wouldn't be surprised. But one of the things that I remember him telling us about the modeling process was that it was important to elicit the presuppositions of the person that you're modeling. So if you want to know what the shaman, that's not the best example, because I think the one maybe he used with us was the musician, some of the drummers that he worked with. He would talk with them about drumming. He would get their analog digital content about the process, as well as then going in and mirroring their breathing, mirroring the blinking of their eyes, mirroring their body movements and things like that, while he was seeking to absorb the non-conscious content. And I don't know if you mentioned that or not, but it just seemed to me that the idea about their presuppositions was also something that I remember was useful and helpful.
Yeah. I think what happened thereafter is that the NLP community got embroiled in a lot of fighting and litigation and problematic. So then what happened is different people started carving out different parts of NLP into their own legacy. So if you meet John now, he wouldn't agree or he wouldn't advocate the idea of eliciting presuppositions or getting. He would say that content is completely irrelevant. So he would say that you're doing, or I'll correct myself, he would say that you're doing analytic modeling and not pure NLP modeling if you're trying to get anything other than just copying the person as they're doing it as such. And I understand where he's coming, and my belief is that these people all want to protect their segments of NLP and keep their legacy intact. So they kind of made sure that they carved it out and they said, this is it. And sometimes got very puritanical about it. This is the way you do it. And that came out in the book that he wrote last called Whispering in the Wind. It was a good contribution in the sense that it made people more clear about what NLP modeling was. And I am personally not I don't owe any allegiance to anybody. At the end of the day, I owe allegiance to the client. I'll do what it takes to help the client. And I don't owe allegiance to any of the trainers. I owe allegiance to the subject. So if the subject demands that we do analytic modeling, we'll do that. If it demands that we do pure NLP modeling, I'll do that. If it demands we do all of that and more, we'll be happy to do that per se. Deep trance identification is a phenomenal subject in and of itself, where you go into a trance and you imagine you are that great singer or that same guitarist or that same mathematician. And then you notice that you're able to perform feats as skilled or as capable as that person, even though you've not had the training of that person, even though you've not had the practice or the hours of skill demonstration that other person has done. And in my mind and opinion, it is moving into an awakened mind pattern where you're accessing stuff from the delta and from the theta. I remember one of the things that Anna Weiss gave in a demonstration where she asked somebody, how did you figure out the answers in the teacher's, what the mathematics teach? And she said that the person said very sheepishly that he could read from the person's mind, the teacher's mind, what the math problem was, and answer that. So deep trance identification is a way of us connecting with that aspect of you, which is anyway available to me at the delta, through the theta, and so on and so forth. So I think all of this work still goes back to that. And I appreciate John for bringing it up early. One of the things that NLP emphasizes on simplification. So the simplest thing that you have as a tool, a pattern, is that of state. What is the emotional state? What is your mental state? The more simpler precursor to that is how your body is being held and the physiology. And prior to that is the breath. How do you breathe? And I think one more step to that is your attention. Where is your attention? So we say that attention is the smallest and the most powerful variable of change from an NLP viewpoint. That where you place your attention is the fundamental place in which you are able to make a change. And in the awakened mind pattern, when you work through this, you see that it's the attention that keeps shifting and changing. If you look at 6-step reframing, it's typically a personal transformation meditation where what you do is you introduce beta, you go into the theta and you dialogue with that part of your subconscious. And by the dialogue, you're able to get certain answers. That's typically what a 6-step reframing is. So John writes in his book, Whispering in the Wind, that he was not well one session when he was teaching NLP. And he went and made a request of his subconscious mind, saying that if it could help him pull through in spite of it, he would really appreciate it. And he said that he went into a trance and he taught something. And next day he recovered. When he came back, he noticed what he wrote on the board, and it looked like something that he was not even familiar with. And that's what was coming as a 6-step reframing. But as I was reading the personal transformation meditation, I was wondering if he found himself in Anna Weiss's class and picked that off and said, this is 6-step reframing. But what it is in 6-step reframing is that for every behavior that you have, which is happening automatically from the person, the important thing is everything is being maintained and run because of what we call as a positive intention. There's always a positive intention behind the behavior. So what you basically do is that you dialogue with the subconscious to ask, hey, I noticed that you are chewing my nails, or you're chewing nails consistently or constantly. Would you be willing to communicate about the positive intention of that behavior? And you basically set up signal system with the unconscious. Setting up signal system with the unconscious is nearly 80, 90 years old. If you learned hypnosis, we have something known as ideomotor movements, where any standard stage hypnotherapist will work with you and say to your subconscious mind when you're in a trance that if you want to give a yes, please move your right finger, and if you want to say no, please move your left finger. So when you take people into a trance and you want to do an investigation, you ask them, are you happy about what's happening? And you get yes. Are you happy about the way it's going? You get a no. So it's a way where the person's unconscious responds without the intervention of the conscious mind or without the filters that block that from coming. So in 6-step reframing, instead of going for ideomotor responses, you look for sensations in the body which can then be amplified for a yes. So if I were to think about that which is the behavior that's biting nails, then I can notice the part of me that's creating an ask for it for a signal, and I can notice kind of an itchy sensation in my throat. Then I go inside and say, if that is a signal, please increase it for a yes and decrease it for a no. So then what happens is I say, please give me a yes signal. I notice a bigger itchy sensation. I ask for a no. There's a very minimal itchy sensation. So then what I have is a yes-no signal system. So 6-step reframing uses the yes-no signal system to dialogue with the subconscious to find out A, the positive intention, and B, then to be able to go inside and ask the unconscious mind that keeping the positive intention in mind, can you look at other behaviors that deliver on the positive intention, but at the same time are replacements for this unhealthy or undesirable behavior that you're looking to work on. So in a very simple way, you bring about that. And because you're working at the level of the automaticity, the change that you're looking for comes automatically without you having to make a conscious effort to do that. Think of it like a rewiring inside the brain. So what Connirae Andreas did is that one fine day, she said, maybe the positive intention has a positive intention behind it. And then she started noticing that maybe there's a chain, and she started playing with this. She said, okay, I noticed that I'm feeling sad about my son leaving for college. Where is the sadness? And she felt, in the felt sensitization, feels in my chest, it feels heavy. What is the positive intention? And you're dialoguing, and then the answer comes connecting. And then you say, okay, that's the positive intention. And then you invite the part to step into what it is to feel connected, wholly and completely. And then what happens is, then once that whole thing is experienced and you feel connection, then you say, hey, you want to feel connected for a particular reason. What is the intention behind being connected? And then you say, love. And then you go and say, okay, step into what it is to feel love totally and completely. And then you ask, hey, behind love, there must be an intention. What is it behind that? And then comes up, say, for her, oneness. And then you go into it, and she describes that this is a core state. That when you go behind positive intention, behind positive intention, behind positive intention, whether it's 3, 5, or 10, eventually you hit something known as a core state. And that's when you will have what we call as an evolved mind pattern. That really you get into an evolved mind pattern, and then you take that and you bring it over to the whole thing and to the original issue. And you find that you can no longer think of the original issue in the same disturbing way or in the way it used to disturb you. You find yourself completely transformed. So it will be very much akin to the personal transformation meditation that you see in Anna Weiss's work. So would you guys be very quickly interested in going through a very quick lead of core transformation? If some of you have already done it, then I don't want to spend your time. Would you guys be okay with that? Yes, no? Yeah, good. Let's take an issue that is bothering you, anything which is behavioral or anything that's upsetting you. Let's take a deeper issue. Let's say, I'd like to work with a volunteer on this.
I wonder if Oksana's friend would be willing to try it, to suspend disbelief and see if possibly, because you're hooked up.
Yeah.
Krish, I just wanted to say that this is really incredibly fascinating. I mean, I know that these concepts of dialoguing with the part and all that same thing stuff basically came out of Gestalt psychology, and so I can well understand that it would echo its way into lots of different modalities. But how neat that, well, and then my question was, when people are going through that, I mean, they're not in deep meditation, they're just like sitting there and having a friendly conversation with you like we're doing right now? So you just ask them the questions. Do they have their eyes closed to at least get the alpha bridge? No, it's that it's that present.
I'm sorry. When people start accessing the core states, they find eventually that it's more easier for them to do it when they are keeping the eyes closed. In the beginning, we don't invite them to close, but you find that eventually they do close their eyes.
Fantastic. So, Oksana, maybe you want to hit the G and turn the gamma on. That'd be very cool.
So, Arieh, keeping with the spirit of non-content, is there a behavioral issue that you want to work on? What we're going to do is that we're going to look at a behavior or an attitude or a particular issue that Arieh feels that he would like to work on.
What does it mean called transformation? Just the wording. It's a bit confusing. Could you say the same in other words?
Say, look at it in terms of a resolution. It could be that, for example, I have somebody who's passed away in my life and I feel a certain loss, and I kind of feel this loss again and again, and I no longer want to feel this loss. Or it could be as simple as that I'm biting my nails and I want to stop biting my nails. Or it could be that I feel confused and I would like to feel more clear. Or it could be that I notice that I'm not open and I want to work with that part of me so that I can feel more open to new things, or whatever it is that's coming up.
He's just looking for an issue, Oksana. Just for Arieh to come up, with some sort of issue, inner issue that he wants to have changed or healed or transformed in some way.
Well, I guess.
And I don't need you to disclose what it is. You can keep it to yourself. We can work with it content-free.
And just for yourself. You found the issue you'd like to work on?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
We've got
Is it an emotional thing? I just need a structure. Is it emotional? Is it behavioral? Is it a behavior that you do that you want to stop or change? What is it like? The structure.
Well, it's more about confusion and clarity.
Yeah, okay, good. So what I'd like you to do is, I want you to go back to the state of confusion that you feel.
Okay.
On and off.
Yeah.
And I want to now ask you to... That's fine. And I want you to do is, I want you to notice how it feels when you feel confused.
Okay.
And if you could just tell me what you feel in your body. Do you feel something around your head, your chest? What do you feel as a feeling? Sensation.
I guess it's mainly in the head, like the brain is overworking, but not getting any.
Yeah. So this phrase brain is overworking is a concept. What is the sensation you feel? You feel a buzz, you feel like some tension, you feel some tingling. What is it that you're feeling?
Well, right now I'm feeling a little bit of a headache, but I don't think that is because of that.
I would say that is very critical. The headache is a signal from your unconscious, your subconscious mind. So we would take that as a signal.
Okay.
And where are you feeling that headache? Are you feeling in the center, sideways? How is it spread?
Yeah. Where the electrode is, actually, right?
Yeah. Well, you're familiar with that. We are familiar with that.
Yeah.
When I used to do the exercises with Judith, sometimes we would see that, and that would be the beta that's coming out because of the dialogue. Oh my God, it's hurting. It's really this. That's the kind of thing that would happen. So what I'd like you to do is, I'd like you to go and...
I have been feeling it throughout the whole conversation, even though we're talking about me or anything like it. So, well, I don't know if it's, what does this mean, but yeah, it didn't start just now. It was,
Got it.
I think maybe this is a little bit too tight.
Well, let's play with it and see where it goes.
Okay.
In the meanwhile, I'll ask everybody to take that and notice the sensation around that. Maybe now it's a good time to close your eyes, Arieh.
Okay.
You can close your eyes and you can go inside and ask yourself, what is the positive intention behind this behavior? You're asking your unconscious mind, your subconscious mind, would you be willing to communicate what is the positive intention behind this behavior? For what purpose are you generating this for me? And as you stay there, you want to notice what comes up.
Do you want me to think about it, or
just tell me what's coming up in your awareness? What's bubbling to your awareness? You're always looking for something that's bubbling to your awareness. What did you notice? Did you notice something you heard, or you saw an image, or you felt like hey, this is what is the, for what purpose the confusion is coming?
Not sure.
Yeah, that sounds very much consistent with your issue that you're working with. If you're very sure, we would not have an issue, would we? So I'm really appreciative of the fact that you're not sure. But when you say you're not sure, I take it there's something that's coming up and you're not sure how to describe that.
Yeah, also because, well,
Oksana is adjusting the electrodes. Well,
we're not disclosing, so
yeah.
To keep it abstract.
No, I don't mind you giving a word or something that is not revealing the content, but at the same time you're comfortable in disclosing. You could say like it's for to be safe or to be protected, or
yeah, I guess that would be correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I invite you to do is close your eyes now. I would invite you to go inside and realize that parts are kind of mistrained or brought up with this kind of idea that we can't experience safety or protection on our own, that we need to do something to get something. And I invite you to leave the domain of doing and go to the being and give your part the freedom to experience safety. Just join me in this fantasy to see what it is for your part to step into safety fully, totally, completely, from head to toe, from one tip of your one hand to the other tip of the other hand, from the surface of your skin to the deepest part of your DNA. Safety. So I'm calibrating him as through the NLP way to see what's happening. I can see the skin color relaxing, and it's kind of corresponding with what we see on the mind mirror. Then gently, Arieh, I want you to kind of get into a curious place and ask, what is the intention behind being safe? Now that you're safe, wholly, totally, and completely, what is it that you want through being safe that's even more important than being safe?
Probably relaxed, I guess.
Yeah.
No.
I want you to, does anything come up? Like, what is it that your system wants that's even more important than safety? When safety is fully reached, what is it that your system wants that's even more important than safety? And I'm not trying to force an answer on you, Arieh. Just see if something bubbles up to your awareness.
I guess I think that's the base for a lot of, if not most of, the positive emotions that humans have. Safety is probably the foundation for
Excellent.
of the feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. So go inside Arieh and ask that now that the foundation of all your feelings, safety, now that you allow yourself to experience in this moment, what is it that this part wants through safety that's even more important than safety? And just notice what comes up for you.
I'm not sure if it's anything specific. It's kind of like the root for yeah, I guess I believe that from that.
I'm not following you, Arieh. Did you say you're connected to the root? Is that what I heard you saying?
I mean, that safety is the root for development in other areas.
Good, good. Excellent. I want you to just close your eyes.
Yeah.
And then now that safety is the root for development in other areas, invite this part to step into what it is to be fully developed in other areas. What it is for it to feel, to be alive to this experience of being fully developed in other areas. And notice that as you give permission to that part to feel fully developed, and then go inside and ask this part, what is it that you want through being fully developed that's even more important than being fully developed? And notice what comes up. And whatever comes up is absolutely fine.
I guess it's the feeling of wholeness.
Good. I invite you to step into this feeling of wholeness, completely and totally, fully and absolutely. Wholeness inside, outside. Invite this part to step into what wholeness is. It's as if you're lifting the brakes off it and allowing yourself to experience. Because what it is, Arieh, is that we've been trained that in order to experience these deep states, we need to do something. We don't need to. We can just give ourselves permission and feel that. And then I'm going to invite your unconscious mind. I'm going to run the second phase of this thing very fast so that we don't have to do this. I invite your unconscious to bring this feeling of wholeness into this aspect of you wanting to be developed in all the areas, and let it be overwhelmed, washed over by this wholeness, and take that and bring it over into the part of you that wants to feel safe, connected, and then bring that into that part of you that feels this confusion at times, and bring this wholeness to that. And then I invite your unconscious to bring about all the changes in a way that's healthy, that works for you, and is in sync with the changes and the movements that are happening in your life right now. Good. So, Arieh, that was a very brief thing. Could you just tell me how you're feeling at this point of time, or what's going on for you at this point of time?
Well, I'm feeling a bit like you got me into more imagining things and thinking about yeah, like not just other stuff, not what's happening right now, what could happen in the future, or other possibilities of, yeah. So
How are you feeling right now, Arieh?
how am I feeling? Well, I have to say that throughout this whole session, I can, well, I obviously, like, I can feel the electrodes, and I know that I am being observed by a few people all around the world. And so, to be honest, I think that this is just as effective as whatever it is you guys are trying to research. And it's very hard to like will determine what is actually happening, because this is affecting the whole thing. But yeah, I did my best to put that aside and really.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand that.
I feel, well, yeah, I guess I feel a little bit better because I was imagining a better place from the initial start. But it's also fading very quickly now that we are actually talking about it, and I'm back into the reality with the eyes open. Like the closing the eyes makes a big difference, I think, because now I can see the screen and all these different waves, and yeah, so it's affecting me as well.
Yeah. So
significant level.
For the brevity and the paucity of time, what we're looking for at the end of the day, I mean, while it's nice to know how good you're feeling at the end of the session, that is not the end of what we're looking for. We would look to see that whatever issue is presenting for yourself, does it stop presenting itself, or does it present itself lesser as you go along? So that would be what we'd be going after, or we'd be checking to see at the end of the day. It's a good way to notice how people are feeling at the end of the day. But we feel that, or at least quite a number of new people in the NLP field feel that that's not the end of it. A kinesthetic change for the better is not an indication of behavioral change. It may be an indicator, may not be an indicator. We've had people who felt very disturbed at the end of the session, but the behaviors changed. And for example, I worked with somebody who was a consistent debtor and was abusing the credit cards, and they came for a session. And I think I definitely left them in a bad feeling state. But the father called me back and told me that she never misused the credit cards ever again after that. So we're looking for a behavioral change, which is what the person wants, rather than necessarily going after the kinesthetic. So, Judith, anything that you want to share, or Oksana, you want to share about what you read in the readings? I could see the awakened mind and partially the evolved mind in the cave. I couldn't make any sense of the GSR. So if you'd like to throw light on what you saw, Judith or Oksana, I'd appreciate that.
I was just delighted with your brainwaves, Ari. You have such lovely awakened mind patterns, and you had a ton of alpha with your eyes open. Just gorgeous, gorgeous brainwaves. Are you a creative artist or something like that?
Well, yeah, that's my main passion is to write music, and I try to build my life around that. Which is obviously causing me some, just like I was supposed to be a lawyer, but I decided to go into nature and be more creative instead. And it brings some stresses into life, but I wouldn't have it any other way, so I prefer that. Yeah.
Well, it shows in your pattern because you had a very quiet and inwardly focused beta, even with your eyes open, and you're also one of those people I just love to work with. I'm sure all awakened mind trainers do, where their brainwaves totally reflect their inner experience. And so I could see that when you held in mind the issue of confusion or lack of clarity, sure enough, it was your left brain beta that increased. And several times you came back in contact with this issue, and your brainwaves. One time I saw you, Oksana, get up to fix his electrodes, but it wasn't. It was the stress of the issue that was making his brainwaves completely drop out on the right and flare and onto the left and then reverse position like that. But what I noticed was that when Krish was working with you on moving toward or even beyond the concept of self-preservation, self-protection, and you were settling into the realization of what was your bottom line, what was the most important thing to you, and you came in touch with the concept of wholeness, then you started producing partially evolved mind patterns, first on the right and then on the left. And I saw plenty of upturned delta down at the bottom. And as you came into that idea of wholeness and bringing wholeness to the issue, then you were even producing some of those lovely diamond. You were moving into that diamond-shaped pattern at the bottom. And that diamond is really nice because what causes it is an increase in theta. So it means that this increase in theta means that you were really down in your theta waves where change takes place. And it's also true that diamond is an interim pattern before the rounding of the evolved mind pattern. It's moving out from the awakened mind a certain theta. And you did have a continual theta increases throughout. So you were definitely doing it. But once you flared, and this was something Max Cave said, that every time you have an incident of a higher state pattern, it stabilizes your lower state patterns. So as soon as you started to flare into that right brain evolved mind, that left brain evolved mind, then I saw the diamonds start to come up. So it doesn't surprise me at all that you're feeling, a change. But as Krish said, there's more to the exercise from his standpoint, and from the awakened mind trainer's standpoint. The more could also be just using that technique Krish gave you to bring wholeness to the concept, to the issue there, and let that, because when you were doing the wholeness, you definitely had the higher state patterns of wholeness. So you have a landmark there. You have a landmark, and I did see a release, Krish, on the GSR, although he was talking intermittently in answer to you at times, which would have affected his GSR. But he had a very high Lesh score of, I saw a 5.4. It might have been a little bit more to start with. And as he talked, but when he was doing the wholeness thing, he was moving back to the 5.4. So that's an awakened mind, Lesh, and those were higher state patterns, and it's very cool. Thank you for being willing to let us look at your brainwaves, and of course we were all enjoying it tremendously, but also doing the exercise ourselves simultaneously. And I thank you, Krish, for the exercise. I had eyes partially closed watching his brainwaves, but was doing it inwardly at the same time, and I felt a shift too. Very nice.
Krish, I was delighted to see some validation for the core transformational process in developing. This is something I had noticed myself over the years, but I have not really had any validation from anyone else that this was actually occurring. And people would come into workshops and they would say, "Oh, I've studied, Gentleman's focusing," and I would look at their awakened mind pattern. They would have beautiful, perfect awakened mind patterns. And we do a little bit of the core transformation, and immediately, they're going into evolved mind states. So this is a process that I think all of us as practitioners And it sounds like several of the people here are already more than competent in this area, that we should all learn to do the core transformational processes and Genlin's focusing processes, because it's so close to what Anna's doing anyway.
Yeah. The Andreases, they published a book quite a number of years ago of a guy called Andrew Austin. It's called Tales from a Rainbow Machine. And in that, Andrew speaks about his application of NLP with various clients. And I think the most interesting one was he was brought a client who was possessed, or who was alleged to be possessed by a demonic spirit. All right. So it was very interesting because he worked with that person in a one session on that part which was demonically possessed and took it to its core state. And he swears that by the time she left the stage, she left in an angelic state. That's how she left the session. So Andrew Austin is a good friend and a colleague, and I've spent time studying with him thereafter. I just had one of my former colleagues in the US sponsor the Connirae Andreas to come and teach the wholeness process in Denver. Sorry, not in Denver. Houston, Texas. And we don't have the time to go. I think it's already too much, but I'm happy to come back again if you guys would invite me to do the demonstration of the wholeness process, which is a completely content-free method, and see what kind of brainwave patterns that evolves. And the work that Andrew did, which is in the world of metaphors, which is he found that everybody holds the processing of an issue as a metaphor inside their head to the right brain. And by peeking into the way the metaphor is, it allows you to process the issue or a problem in a more deeper way than what we've been used to in the past. So I'd like to come back and give a demonstration of those two to look at that, and then have Judith and Oksana look at those brainwaves, because I think those are the cutting edge of what I would call is what's happening in the world of NLP at this point in time. Both the metaphors of movement and the wholeness work done by Connirae Andreas. I also have a lot of appreciation for the work of self-esteem that Steve Andreas did. That's really, really powerful. I think he's hit upon a set of structure which can help impact the self-esteem of individuals. So I have a feeling that the last 10 years of major development work has been either through the Andreases or sponsored by the Andreases, either one of the two. Because the Andreas used to sponsor Andrew Austin and kind of introduced him to the NLP community for his initial growth.
I believe Andrew Austin, the person that you mentioned, had been working with metaphors recently?
That's right. He's been doing that for nearly 10 years now, I think. And he started off with Charles Faulkner. Go on, sir.
Connirae teaches the wholeness process online. You can take the entire program online.
Yeah, very much. I'm looking at Gary that I could take somebody like what we did with Arieh was it's like one half of the core transformation, as you're aware. I did it in a very fast way. I would be very curious to see how the wholeness process works on an individual, and sharing that with people and seeing what kind of patterns come. I imagine we would see more evolved mind patterns stabilizing through that. That's my imagination.
Yes, I'd love to see that. In fact, I need to go back, and I took her online course about, I guess it was a year ago, but you have a continuing refreshing anytime you want to take it. So I think I'm going to go back and watch it all over again and go through that again myself.
Yeah. So Judith, Oksana, I think it's nearly 1.5 or maybe 1 hour 45. Maybe it's, I don't want to hold on people anymore. I think we have enough content for another session if you guys are interested, where we can come back and do that if that's something that appeals to you, or if you feel you want to come back to it 6 months later, a year later, that's perfectly fine. But just from my end, the invitation is open.
I think that would be lovely, Krish. I think, as you say, we've scratched the surface, but clearly, if people are willing to hook up, I think that this could be a wonderful study. You know, end up being a study for the website, and something that we could analyze and keep track of. I didn't write down what you were saying at what point. I was only visually, but we could certainly keep a better record of what you were doing, so we could segment the session and look at the changes in a very analytical way.
Sure.
Krish,
So,
Krish, may I ask you a question? Because you mentioned the book, and I'm not very good at spelling foreign names. So if you later could send me a link, maybe to, what the book is about that you mentioned, because the latest Andreas something.
no, I'll tell you. It's Tales from a Rainbow Machine. I'm putting that
you can put in
chat window.
Yeah, that's right.
By Andrew Austin.
Andrew.
And the process that I did was the co-transformation process that I did it's by Connirae Andreas. You can Google for that and that's the process that I did on.
So we can find an instruction, right? Or
yeah.
An instruction on how to do it if we want to repeat it ourselves.
Yeah. The wholeness process is what I'm referring to. You can again Google for that. It's again by Connirae Andreas. And the metaphors of movement work is, I did a modeling work on working with some of the fastest typers. So it's one of my pet modeling projects. So I can type really fast. That's not a problem. I can type as fast as I speak. I have an entry along with a mentor in the local Indian Book of Records for being one of the fastest teachers of typing in India. I'm one of the fastest teachers of typing in the world, but the Guinness Book of Records didn't bother giving us the acknowledgement. So it's only Indian to start with. You can go to this website, metaphorsofmovement.com, and you can see the thing. I'm happy to come back and do the demonstrations on both and very clearly look at, very eager to see what the brainwave patterns are like, purely from my own research and from a sharing point of view.
Now, Krish, did we do anything here related to this downloading the genius thing, or is the downloading genius an umbrella for all these other processes?
Yeah, it's an umbrella. It's an umbrella that we did. What we need to mention very quickly is that since Ramana Maharishi, the saint in India who spoke about the wholeness, he would keep asking the question, who am I? Who am I? That's what he would say. Because he died in 1965 or 67, Connirae Andreas could not have done pure NLP modeling. She had to do what is known as an analytical modeling, which is she had to study his books and works and writings of his students and come to some form of understanding and experiment and come across that. So even though it comes under the domain of modeling, it's very interesting to see that was not a pure NLP modeling project, but it was a kind of a conversational and eliciting ideas and structures by conversation. So it will be called as analytical modeling. And at the end of the day, we really don't care, Judith, whether we get it through conversational modeling or through mimicking the person and having that, noticing that behavior in your system. It's at the end of the day, whatever can help us grow and move forward is what I'm committed to and I'm interested in.
Fascinating. Fascinating. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Judith. I have a lot of gratitude for Judith. I've had wonderful experiences at her place. One of my closest friends that I have in the world is another co-mind mirror trainee, Niket from India. We did the program separately, but we got to know each other and become very, very close friends. My girlfriend Deanne is from Canada, and she was another mind mirror trainee. So I made some of my deepest relationships in the mind mirror courses. Of course, with you also, Judith.
Wonderful? Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah,
Like-minded spirits. Like-minded spirits.
Great. Thank you, Judith, for the opportunity. Thank you, Oksana, for swinging by. Thank you, guys, for staying online and hearing me out. I really feel privileged to share this information.
Thank you,
Krish.
very much.
Thank you.
Look forward to another meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Krish.
Thank
Same
you.
here. Thanks a million.